I'm Joanna Garzilli. You're watching Life Stories. Today, my guest is Kimberly Friedmutter, life management expert, celebrity hypnotherapist, and author of Subconscious Power. Kimberly,
Hi.
it's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. I could listen to you all day long with that accent.
Well, I love your accent.
Like, oh, it makes me want to sit straighter and just do better.
So speaking of accents, where did you grow up?
So I'm from Texas, and some people hear it, some don't, but usually the y'all part gets in. So
I love that. I love
some
the
of
y'all.
the native way we speak there is just super casual, always friendly. You know, we it's hard to get rid of.
Have you ever experienced a tornado?
I haven't actually experienced a tornado, although I've seen them. So I've been super lucky that way. We used to sit on our rooftop, my dad and I, and watch the weather actually before the tornado. It's really fascinating. Everything gets green, and it's an interesting color green, almost like an avocado with a little light behind it. And that's the sky. And then there's this really magnificent feeling of magnetism, I guess. It's like a magnet feel of this pull in the air where it's almost like a vacuum. It's fascinating. Have you not done that before?
I have not experienced a tornado,
And
thank
all the
goodness.
things and no one's ever asked me either. So I'm like, oh my gosh,
Well,
that
in
brings back
Texas,
memories.
I'll tell you why, because my son is really into tornadoes. He's always had a
is he?
fascination with them.
How old is he?
He's 9.
Oh, okay.
So
that's a good
why.
age.
So did you have any pets growing up?
Yes, horses and chickens. The chickens were fun because they're very sweet. I do have a little bit of guilt shaming when I cook chicken, which is like a lot, because they're so nice. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but they're really fantastic feeling little creatures. And the eggs that you get from a homegrown chicken, so there really is a lot to the free range thing now. I don't know if you buy free range eggs, but there really is something to that where the yolk is really rich and orange and puffy, and it looks like it gives life like it's supposed to, you know, as opposed to what we're so often used to seeing, that little pale thing in the middle of the egg. But
So were you on a farm?
no, but we turned it into that. So it was really a science project. I was probably much like your son in the sense that all things science interested me. And chickens, you know, the story about the child that brings home the chicken for Easter, and then, you know, the parents have to deal with raising it and all that. So that was my folks. And I was super lucky because we lived on acreage. And so between the horse and the chickens and the dogs, and, you know, it was just really a fantastic type of upbringing. So, you know.
And what was school
country.
like growing up?
I was smart. I was super lucky to be smart. So it was easy for me. I didn't have any issues with it. And then at 14, I went on to do independent studies, which is what you do if you're a child in entertainment, or in my case, I was modeling. And so I was able to actually not have to go every day, all day.
How did that happen? How did you get into modeling?
My mom. So my mom became ill, and she was very worried about what we would do with ourselves. My sister is 7 years my senior, and she was worried about us. And so she was like, well, you know, she took my photos, she sent them to Eileen Ford in New York. She called. You know, as a child, oftentimes you're mortified by what your mother does, but she called Lord Snowden. If you remember, he was a photographer for Vogue and all of that. And she called him and said, this is my daughter, and, you know, I've been given this terrible prognosis for my life, and, you know, could you help us? And so he told her what to do, and that's what we did.
So what happened from that? Can you share a little bit of...
Well, so I signed on with different agencies all over the world and started modeling. And then I'd come back. Now, my mom was a school teacher also at my school. So that was very helpful. She taught home economics and child development. So, you know, you learn how to cook, and of course the cutting up of the chickens, and we would raise them. And it was really just, you know, where's Fluffy? Where's this one? Where's that one? And, you know, we'd eat them.
So traveling all over the world as a model, and at a young age, what life skills did you start to develop to really hold your center?
Yeah, so you really come in with it. I am, you know, I had a lot of folks reach out to me since, especially in San Antonio, where I'm from, that have beautiful daughters that want to model and whatnot, and or get into any entertainment venue, and they would call and ask for my advice. And so really you come in with those gifts. If you're smart, it's much easier. If you have a fear of authority. It's much easier if you fear things that could hurt you and harm you, nightlife and scary people. That helps you. I had all of those things, and you really kind of do have to line up those features of this person that you're sending out into the world, because 14's young, and granted, I was more mature emotionally than a normal or typical 14-year-old. I mean, you're still 14, there's no way around just the chronological age, but it was hard. When I look back on it, I look back with joy and gratitude. When I was in it, I was fearful because, everything's new, nothing is certain. My folks weren't with me. I had a niece that wanted to follow in my footsteps and model, and I did go with her places. I flew to Hong Kong. She was shooting a thing in Taiwan, and, I really nurtured that because I knew how scary and awful it was at the time. But it was necessary. How you forge on.
Did you have any particular difficult shoot?
Oh my gosh. So one comes to mind right away.
Yes.
It wasn't difficult in maybe what you're thinking, but I was doing a lot of hand modeling and parts and things like that just kind of happened. They look you over. I always compare it to when you buy a horse. You look it over. Let me see your teeth. Let me see how you look. And so they noticed. They said, "Oh my gosh, your hands," and this and that. So I was doing a very important shoot, and it was we were shooting big film, and it was very close up and all of this. And they had taken the crystal off of the top of the watch so that it wouldn't get any glare. And we sat there forever. There was a gentleman, and my hand is up next to his bow tie and all of this, and we're getting ready. Finally, the shot is ready to go, and I look and I see a smudge on the face of the watch, and I don't see that the crystal is not on the watch, so I am certain that this can just blow off. And so I go like that, and the hand of the watch came flying off onto my skirt. And when I saw that, I don't even remember. You know how your brain represses too hard to process information? Yes. That happened to me, and I was just like, wait a minute, we have to wait just a second. And so sure enough, they had to call in a jeweler. They had to place it. I mean, that's not nothing serious about that, but it was just really awful.
But it's that thing of when something's important to you.
Well, and important to them, and then it was,
and
it already been, I think, 4 hours, and, it's just a lot of really detail.
What's your least favorite word?
My least favorite word? Oh, I have them. It'd be hard to decide which is least. I'm a word person, and so because also with the neurolinguistics programming, what you think then comes out of your mouth, and so how they always say with jokes, there's truth in jokes, and there's this and that, and jest and whatnot, but it's true. And so I try to be super conscious about how I say what I say, because really it is our first entry into communication with another person. If I speak to you, even my tone, and actually especially my tone, tone registers more than what I'm saying.
Yes.
Right? And so my least favorite word, one thing, and this is just a silly thing, but the word supposedly. It's supposedly is what people will say instead of supposedly.
I was going to say, isn't it supposedly?
Yeah, good girl, you caught it. Yeah, supposedly. And you'll hear it a lot, and it's interesting. So I do have to look it up and make sure that it can't be said both ways, because it's really prevalent. And that's just a funny little slide off, and an awareness thing.
But it's like we call it Chinese whispers in England, and I think you call it telephone. Maybe someone heard it from an accent a certain way.
Oh, that could be.
And
telephone for us is the game where you whisper.
But maybe someone said it with a certain accent, and then they think it's supposedly, and then it got passed on from.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound so bad, but when I hear it, I think, oh, that's really interesting. It's one of those that I think if the Urban Dictionary did it, you could kind of go either way. Maybe we have to look that up. That's interesting.
What is the most powerful word to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Because it means you're doing it, or accepting it, or that there's a confirmation. Yes is, I think, understated. I think people say it all the time. Sure, yes, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very.
And the tone with that as well.
Yes.
And so you have a strong interest in words.
Major interest in words. Because again, it's how we present. You only know me really by my words. And especially before you meet me, you only know me. Now you know me by my texts and emails. But even that is words. And so, don't you get a feeling when you read an email or a text? Don't you feel?
I always feel the energy.
Right.
Always.
Right. And that's
Very
a good
much so.
thing for people to remember, because it is how you're putting yourself into play with others.
So, subconscious power. I can't resist going there with that. How did you get interested in this idea of diving into the subconscious?
So I had a talk radio show in Los Angeles. It was on the Howard Stern station. Do you know 97.1 KLSX?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was at the time it was all talk, and it was the only FM talk station. And so we were the cool station. We had a lot, obviously Howard Stern. We had Tom Likas, Dr. Drew, and Adam Carolla. So anyway, that was great. From there, just to continue my education, in interest, I took some hypnosis classes simply because I had been hypnotized and it worked beautifully. And so after I tried it...
When you said it worked beautifully, in what way?
Well, it fixed what I was there to fix,
What
which
were you
I'll
there to
keep to
fix?
myself. I'll keep that to myself, just like I keep my clients' issues to themselves.
Yeah.
And I understand that in a deep way, because I was the client to actually many people, but to the first one. And I do believe that, first of all, it feels effortless. It feels so natural, and it's completely uninvasive. It's completely natural. There's nothing you take. There's nothing you need to do. You can follow up with more sessions, of course, but there's not anything you have to do to prep or for post or any of that. And it's such a beautiful protocol that way. It feels literally like just waking up with a new attitude. Literally, from the moment that critical consciousness is out of the way, and all of the things that you've learned and all of the ways in the world that you've unlearned, now you're back to center after a session. And that feels like home.
So you started to do these hypnotherapy classes to be able to be a better host on
I
the
was
radio
curious, and I did want to know what, I have a huge interest in what drives people to do what they do. That's the foundation for really everything I do, is I'm fascinated by the human mind. And so you can imagine being a host of a radio show where there's call-in, and there's a lot of call-in, and literally one word we could say, the computer would just light up with calls. And at the time, it's people on the 405, and it's all around Los Angeles. We had a bandwidth from Ontario, Oxnard to the north to Oceanside to the south. We had a very long bandwidth on that station, and so we got everybody, and it was fabulous. So what they would say, the psychology behind the caller, was very fascinating to me. We would study that and look at who actually dials in and calls and has something to say. Fascinating.
So would you say that was more a combination, because I hear intuition in there as well, or really would you say it was a bigger percentage of science for you?
More about intuition, because again, why do we do what we do? How do we know that we're right? It takes a tremendous amount of energy to live successfully on this planet. It really does. And I think anyone successful would agree with that. And how some things are so just bestowed on you, blessings, luck, genes, the ability to go the distance, an athlete, coming together like they do muscularly. There's just so many elements that just come together, and then here's this package, which is you, and then what you do with that really is from the neck up mindset, your perspective on the world, what you want for yourself, what you want your family to look like. You're a mom, that it's all of that, and you really do shape the lives of everyone. You radiate out a certain percentage depending on who you are and who all you reach, and with you and your show now, you're reaching everyone. It's a powerful thing, and there's a great magnitude to it where it's a responsibility. And I wanted to understand why we do what we do when we do good, why we do what we do when we don't, all of those things.
Do you believe in angels?
I do. First of all, when death occurs, physical death, I call it transitioning, because I do believe the greater part of us is non-physical. Because of that, where do we go? What do we do? What happens? I have a lot of spiritual, how could I word it? Not really happenings, but events that I just feel like have to be from somewhere. So whether we call it spirits, apparitions, if we call it just the basic transitioning. I don't know, where we go or what happens, but I do feel like the veil is thin, and I feel like it's close. I feel like they're not really too far away, those folks that departed.
And do you feel the way that you met your husband was magical, mystical, or just...
It's because I called the matchmaker. That was like a real thing. That was a physical thing. So I was working in Malibu, and I wasn't leaving Malibu. Malibu is a home, kind of island unto itself. It's a small community. The nearest Costco is very far away. So people don't really leave too much, especially when you're a resident there. And so my friends were saying, you've got to do something, because you're just not living until you really leave or find someone. And we were laughing about it. And I am a mated person. That's my best constitution, is mated. That's just who I am. I love to be with I love to be a married person and with a husband. And so, I was lucky, because I never would have met Brad without this woman. And she's an introduction service rather than I feel like there's this person out there and it's this one. It didn't work like that at all. It was very visceral. I said, just in physical, and it purely was my drive that did that. You do have to pick up the phone, and you have to really accept a little bit of humility. I had to get past my ego, was the first thing, because I thought, has it come to this? Oh my gosh, this is bad. And I had all these judgments against myself for it. But when I got to the truth and I stripped away all the nonsense, I thought, I'm not going to meet that person. They're not going to show up, chances are, in my office, and I'm not leaving. So, and I certainly wouldn't have met him as a resident of Las Vegas, Nevada. It's just not on my radar. And he probably would not have met me, because he doesn't seek out hypnotherapy. Although now he has, and he's actually lost 45, close to 50 pounds.
Wow.
I had my colleague hypnotize Brad, and it was about a year ago, and he's just doing great. He was
powerful.
A good subject. Yeah. Creative person, architect.
So 5 years from now, where are you in your achievements?
Oh,
because
my goodness.
you're already prolific and you're doing so much.
Trying. Thank you for noticing.
You are.
Thank you for noticing. 5 years from now, gosh. So, oh my heavens. I hope that there is just this long, big roster of people that have enjoyed the content of the book so much that I've been, I guess, lucky enough to continue to share that information. There's so much. Does your mind ever stop? When you sleep, it doesn't. When you're awake, it doesn't. It's always working. That would be my greatest dream for 5 years from now, that there are just so many people. You know how Lady Gaga has her little monsters?
Yeah.
Well, that in the health care and the mental health care world would just bring me the greatest joy, that someone could really just say that this book changed their life that way, that we could continue to do more and more, because there's so much inside, only so many pages can hold the information.
It feels like that there's books.
Yes.
I think 5 years from now. Right?
Yes.
There's that sense.
Yeah.
And my last question to you is, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh my goodness. I guess kind-heartedness and softness. Because it doesn't matter, really the vehicle for that. I mean, that's just kind of the overall encompassed feeling I get when you ask. I think that, just she was a good egg.
Beautiful. Going back to the chicken. Going all the way back.
See?
I love
Once a chicken, always a chicken.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
My guest today was Kimberly Friedmutter. I'm Joanna Garzilli. Thank you for watching Life Stories. Tune in next time.